Hi, everyone. I'm John Lux. I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida, and welcome to Film Florida Friday. Film Florida Fridays are interactive conversations about current topics, initiatives, and relationship building in Florida's screen production industry. Today, we're having a discussion about education on set. In a moment, our panelists will introduce themselves, and I'll ask some questions. During that time, we're going to ask everybody to keep their microphones on mute to avoid background noise. After we have gotten through all of our initial questions, we'll open it up to the audience for questions and conversations as we always do. At that time, we're going to ask that you use your hand raising function under the React button so we can call on you. We're going to ask everybody to keep their questions and comments brief in the interest of time and out of the fairness to others that also want an opportunity, and because we have some hard out deadlines with our panelists today for other commitments. As always, Film Florida Fridays are free to attend, but we hope you'll consider donating $20.25 for our 2025 fundraising campaign. The donation link will be posted in the chat box, and you can always find that on our website as well. If you're not a member of Film Florida, we also hope you will consider joining at filmflorida.org. So with that, let's bring in our panelists and let them introduce themselves. So let's first go around the grid and do some quick introductions. Aimee, let's start with you.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate in being invited on the panel today. Hi, everybody. My name is Aimee Romano. I am a set teacher, child labor coordinator, and I manage all of the children, minors on set. When you guys have productions, filming, I am there making sure that the kids are safe, happy, rested, and everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing, hopefully, when there's minors on set, because it is a little bit different. I work primarily in Miami to Orlando and actually all over. So thank you.
Excellent. James, how about you?
Good morning, everybody. I'm James Carmicle. I'm a Film Florida member, and I'm a certified California studio teacher, as well as a child labor coordinator in the states of Florida and Georgia. And I also publish a theatrical entertainment industry publication, Stage and Screen Quarterly, that recognizes the accomplishments of the on-set production people in the screen production industry.
Excellent. Michelle?
I have to remember to unmute. I'm very known to do that. Hi, I'm Michelle Glisson-Pullam. I am a talent manager. I am based in Florida, but I have an office in California. That's where I actually started my business. I'm also a mom of a child actor who was 23 and started the industry when he was 11. So I started on the mom of a child actor side and became a talent manager and have worked with several set teachers, so in Georgia and Florida and California. So thank you guys for having me.
Excellent. And finally, Lee and Ella Grace.
Hello, I'm Lee Nessel. I am a parent of a 9-year working actress, started at the age of 3. She'll introduce herself in a moment. And we live in Brevard County, but we are currently in Austin, Texas for 4 months filming a brand new show. Ella's playing the daughter of Matthew McConaughey on a comedy that you'll see on Apple TV. And so we've had studio teachers in California and Texas and Rhode Island and all over the place. I'm also almost 30 years a journalist, and because of Ella's work, got into publicist side of things. So I'm also a junior publicist. So I kind of wear 3 hats: journalist, publicist, and mom. I know you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ella Helton, and I'm an actress and part filmmaker. I've made 3 short films, and I had so much fun making them, and I want to stay an actress forever.
Very good. Excellent. Well, thank you all for being with us. Aimee and James, let's start a little bit with some background information. Let us know how you became involved in the world of on-set education for minors. Aimee, you go ahead first.
Okay, I'm really excited about this question because I get asked this a lot. So I'm a regular classroom teacher for 10 plus years. I worked in New Jersey teaching high school. What ended up happening was when I moved to Florida and I was out searching for my next classroom, my next school home, someone had reached out to me and basically had asked me if I was interested in tutoring children on, and I said, yeah, I tutor as well. And then they said, well, it's kind of a different gig. It's going to be tutoring children that are on location here for a Broadway tour, and they're in West Palm Beach. And I said, I don't do that. I'm just a classroom teacher. And they said, no, that's what we need. We need a teacher. We need a teacher on set for the children. And I said, I could do that. And that's kind of here, 10 years later, here I am. But that's actually how I got into it. My education is, I have my undergraduate degrees in international business, business management, and my master's is in education. I'm currently certified to teach elementary education, high school business education, and I'm California certified for elementary education as well.
Excellent. James, how about you?
I have 25 years experience as a public school teacher in the Los Angeles Unified School District. I taught both elementary and high school, 20 years at, we call it world famous Hollywood High School. I have 2 credentials, a single subject credential from California and a multiple subject credential. In 2018, I retired, went back to New York because I lived there in the 70s and 80s. I discovered on-location education, and the OLE, as we call it, the team offered me a position as an independent contractor as an advocate for the schooling, the welfare, which is health and safety for child performers. And that's where my assignments came from. About 5 years I worked for them on motion picture features and episodic television series at primarily 4 of the big studios in New York: Steiner, Kaufman Astoria, Silver Cup, and Broadway stages. Did some work also with our fellow Film Florida member Frank Patterson at Trilla Studios in Atlanta. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, Aimee, talk about specific training or certification did you have to go through to get from the classroom to on set?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the specific things that in the state of Florida, what you need is they want to see my credential to be a certified teacher in the school, in the district, in the state, I'm sorry. So a lot of that, a lot of what's required is just being that you are a certified teacher. But I went back on my own to get my California multi-subject because a lot of the kids are from California. So I did want to have that, make sure that I'm starting on that route as well. But otherwise, I think a lot of it too is they just want to see someone that's there for the kids, not, everybody, like not that people that aren't, but someone that's specifically on set dedicated to the kiddos.
That makes sense. I forgot to say when we were doing the intro, I mentioned that we have some deadlines, but we're going to lose both Aimee as well as Lee and Ella around 10 o'clock this morning because they have commitments, on set and with education. And so we're going to try and front load a little bit of their questions, and then we'll come back to some of the additional ones with James and Michelle. But just so if anybody is wondering, we're going to lose them around 10 o'clock. But Michelle, let's jump over to you. From a talent manager perspective, what legal and logistical steps do productions need to go through before hiring a minor, and how do they want to make sure that they're taking those steps?
I forgot to mention I'm with Stellar Artist Management. That's my actual company. Every state is different. So for us, when excuse me, when one of our clients books a project, we, immediately talk to production about set teachers. A lot of my minors are SAG, so they, it's it kind of already put in their contracts and their paperwork that they will have a set teacher. I like to reiterate with my parents, make sure that they're, do have a set teacher there. And when I first bring a client on, we have those conversations because a lot of non-union projects, sometimes, our clients like to do those, but sometimes they don't follow the guidelines per se. And I don't promote that. And I don't go along with that. So I did have an instance one time where a client booked a project on her own. I asked if there was a set teacher. She said there was not. I suggested they pull her child off the set. They wanted to continue with it. And it caused a little bit of an issue. California is one of the strictest, I think, in New York as well. And I believe the other states are coming around as well, that there must be a set teacher. Some of us have our set teachers that we've worked with over the years. I worked with one in Atlanta when my son was on set. But I always recommend we pull up the state, what the state requirements are. And for productions to employ a minor, they have to, submit to, and for California, it's different than Florida. It's Department of Business Professional Regulation, but there must be a set teacher. That's the bottom line. So I know it's kind of unfamiliar territory with parents in the beginning, and there's a lot going on. But I really try to educate them in the importance of having that set teacher. The kids sometimes, I know my son was 11. He's like, I have to do 3 hours of, school on set. I can only work this amount of hours, but you still have to stay to do your schooling. And, and then sometimes they're pulled and they have to, shoot a couple of scenes. And it was just in the beginning, we didn't know what we were doing. We were educated. We knew we had to have a set teacher, but I did a lot of research going into it. And we've been very lucky to have wonderful set teachers. I kind of like to have a conversation sometimes with my set teacher. That's just me. That's what I do. I think it's because I came from the background of being a mom and of a child actor. I like to have a conversation with the set teacher and kind of familiarize them and introduce them to my kids going in on set. Some managers and agents don't do that, but I have the time to do it. So
good. Lee, let's jump over to you as a parent. Lee, as a parent, what were some of your biggest surprises or kind of learning curves when it came to understanding on-set schooling and the rules?
Mm-hmm. And also, just to clarify, we're an hour behind you. It's actually okay to stay for the full podcast.
Oh, good.
So we have to leave at 10 a.m. Central Time, which is 11 your time. So
there you go.
Sorry.
Love Central Time.
There you go. Yes, I'm trying to get time zones different from where you live and where you work, right? And the people who you deal with. So learning curves, honestly, in the beginning, it was a little wild to be like, okay, in order to qualify and count toward the 3 hours of school a day, it has to be a 20-minute block. And so to say, okay, she's shooting scenes and going over lines and she's got all this stuff. Okay, cameras are turning around. She's got to go to 20 minutes to school. But sometimes you only get 15 and then it doesn't count. And then she's got to go back and do more scenes. A lot of times they really try to wait the 4 minutes, the 5 minutes to get you the 20-minute block. They're like, don't touch them. They've got 20 minutes. 3 people have stopwatches on. And it's an interesting balance. So as far as I've always felt a little bad, I'm like, she's got to go do math and now she's got to go remember her lines. But she's handled it like a champ, right? So this little brain's had a lot of memory workout over the years. So that was interesting. Also, I'll just mention 2 other quick things. Sometimes, as Michelle mentioned, Ella might be the first one to show up on set that day because she's going to start school an hour before anyone else shows up for hair, makeup, and getting ready, or everyone's wrapped and she's got to stay and do another hour of school to get those 3 hours. So sometimes the kids are put in longer hours. Sometimes, the adults have different rules as well. And also, it was interesting, the dynamic difference. She's done 19 commercials, and a couple of those were in Florida, and most of those were in California, in LA area. The dynamic of one teacher for 5 kids or 8 kids or however many versus the one-on-one. And sometimes they'll bring in a second teacher if there are background kids or enough kids that one teacher just can't do it all, but they're not going to get the personal attention on a smaller job. I say like a quick job, like a commercial where there's lots of kids, you're just going to kind of get through the day and bring your own work. Whereas she's getting taught by her current teacher now, who, by the way, helped her finish 6th grade 2 months early. So it's pretty awesome.
That's interesting. Now, where does Ella Grace actually go to school officially?
We have a school trailer on set that they have, or sometimes if we're on location, they'll have a room for us. And that's our special place for me and my teacher to work. So it's quiet, out of the way, and we can focus and not get distracted by people moving and doing stuff, which I like.
Yeah.
Well, I have to
No,
say, so there's a
need that.
dedicated trailer for
Mhm.
them, and they just moved it. We're shooting on a 1,300-acre ranch in the beautiful hill country of Texas. And this particular week, they're in the city, and they moved the trailer, even though the kids were only going to be on set one day this week, for them to have. And I thought that
Wow.
was amazing. They hooked
Yeah.
it up, trucked it the whole 45 minutes or whatever. Yeah, it's around very windy hill country roads, this massive trailer. So, they really respect the process. And Ella is a student of Florida Virtual School, by the way, just to put context in there.
That's what I thought. I didn't want to say it without, I wanted to ask because I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought that's where she was. So that makes it convenient because Ella, you're used to kind of remote learning anyway, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I mostly do.
Yeah. Okay.
Could I just say
Go
something
ahead,
real
Michelle.
quick, Ella?
Please.
My son he started Florida Virtual School in 6th grade, and he ended up graduating high school a year early. So it's a wonderful program, and we did the part-time program, and so he did year-round school. So even in the summer, he was doing school, but he got to graduate a year early. So good job. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Aimee, I want to jump down to you from the teacher perspective. What are some of the misconceptions that people have about on-set education for minors from both inside and outside the industry? And how do those misconceptions kind of impact the way young performers are supported?
Oh, that's a good one. So, okay, so misconceptions. I think a lot of people don't know what they're supposed to do. That's what I would say that probably covers it all. A lot of people are like, I mean, most of the calls that I get are, do I need a teacher? How many hours? What it's just like an education of the producers and the production of really what is, and I think it's changed. I think it's changed what it used to be and what it is. And they're looking at it a little bit more stringently, the rules now, but they are required to have a child labor coordinator on set. They have to. And so I think one of the misconceptions is, they're not sure what they need to have. That's the first thing. But second thing, I would probably say, what is acceptable behavior on set? Um, and again, you're putting a bunch of crew with children that sometimes they're not really knowing how to handle themselves. I mean, watching what you're wearing, like what logo is on your shirt. Is it appropriate? That type of thing. Are vaping and smoking, and that it's not supposed to be done. If there's children there, I mean, I don't. Some productions may allow it, but if there's minors, you're not supposed to be smoking in front of the kids. The language and stuff like that. So they just need a little bit more education themselves on what we need to do when you do have children, kind of like a best practices. And we're not California, like they were saying, California is the strictest. Okay, California has it to a T. And one of my good friends who's on this call right now is a California studio teacher as well. So, but they're very strict, right? So we're not as bad, but there is still some best practices that I like to follow when it comes to that. What was the second part, John? Sorry, and also I'm under the weather, guys. Full disclosure, a little sick.
No, you're good. Well, I'm going to jump into the chat box because there's a question here that I think would be good for you to address. It says, I'm a certified substitute teacher from Miami-Dade County Public Schools K-12. Is there enough work as a set teacher from Miami-Dade County? Sounds like somebody might want to take a jump into your neck of the woods. What is
That's
the
great.
volume of
No,
work for you?
that is. I love that you're asking that, and actually reach out to me, and I'll tell you what. I'm starting to train some teachers to what to do, how to do it. If you are a certified teacher, I know you said you're a substitute teacher, But if you're a certified teacher and you want to get into something like this, I am actually starting. I am also the Florida teacher on set, by the way. Just I don't think I mentioned that before. But I am starting to send out a couple of my own teachers to jobs that I can't take. But you have to be pretty amazing, like Mary Poppins, to work, with my name attached, because I only send out, I mean, you got to come with the whole thing, right? A traveling classroom, basically, to set. I've got my stickers. I gave last night my little one wrapped, and I mean, I gave him some presents and some, stickers and some awards. So I think it's an elevated. We're not just, working with the kids. We really have to school them, be there for them and all that. But yes, I do. I'm happy to talk to you about that. Please feel free to send me an email and I can put all that in the chat, my website, and I'm happy to speak to you for that interest.
Yeah, Amy, before you bug out, make sure you put all your contact information and anything you need to plug in the chat box so everybody can see that. So
Okay.
Michelle, I want to jump down to you again. How often do you find yourself in your current role kind of educating families about the importance of a set teacher? I mean, I imagine that some, parents or teachers are like, yeah, it's only a day or two. We don't really need any of that type of stuff. I mean, like, how much educating do you do in terms of what is required and what the process is?
Well, I will say that in my last 6 years of having my company, it's getting actually less and less, which is, to me, that's a sign of the parents are getting educated. I think it does help when I bring them on. We discuss that. It's a big question. A lot of my clients, when I bring them on, they're totally green. They've never done anything like this before. And so I have a list of things I send to them and the research that they do. I know for me, when I was a parent, there was a website or a group called Children in Film, and I haven't looked at them in years, so I pulled them up last night, and I think it's now called Minors and Performance Alliance or something. And there's so many great places where you can find education, and there's also places on the line that aren't correct, and so going in and reading each state what they require, having a conversation with them, making sure they understand, and sometimes my parents will call and they're on set and they're like, they're pulling her, and they're just like with Ella, or just with Ella and with my son, these 20-minute blocks, they almost drove me insane. And we actually were in Georgia when we were filming, so Georgia had a different set of rules than the way California did. However, it was a SAG job, so they followed the California state guidelines, which I think was amazing. Here's the thing that I want if the parents on here to take away. When you're on set, you obviously are your child's advocate. The second person that is your advocate is your studio teacher. That teacher on set with Zach and I became one of my best friends, because what happens is production, they got to get that last shot in. We're going into overtime. They came to me. They hopped over and around the set teacher and came to me, and I adored the director. And he's like, we just need this shot in. Can Zach work just a few more hours? But no, and then you feel terrible because, they want to get the shot in. So I always defer to her, and she was not happy about it. And she approached the producer and she had that conversation, and there was no more. You got what you got. And so again, educating the parents in the beginning and giving them scenarios like that, because you don't really understand until you're there and you're on set. But productions, that's where it starts, is having that conversation. When they offer the job to my clients, the role, the contract, do you have a set teacher? Do you understand the state laws regarding set teachers? And then a conversation with the set teacher. And some set teachers are okay with it. Some are like, oh, we got it, don't worry about it. And it just depends really on who you get and where you are filming. But I always tell my parents, the minute you get on set, you meet your set teacher, give me a call and make sure everything's good. So
John, if I may,
Please,
to
James.
Michelle's point and about the parents do need to be educated about the rules and regs. For example, when a California studio teacher is with a minor, we have to be present when they're in hair, makeup, wardrobe, and even fittings. We also have to be present, and this is, parents may not know this, when there's a table read. That is a California rule. The thing with California is, and as a certified California studio teacher, the schooling is one thing, the 3 hours, 1 hour mandatory, by the way, if you can't meet the 3 hours because production's busy on set. Here's the other thing, the welfare, the health and safety. Production needs to allow the parent and the studio teacher, and I think Amy and Michelle will agree with this, to be within sight and sound of the minor at all times. Now, sometimes that means video village, but it's very important that with welfare, health and safety, meals, protecting the minor from tight ropes or something like that. I think you'll agree with that. And the last thing I want to say, John, for a California studio teacher, our viewers might want to know, it's a multiple subject and a single subject credential. You have to be dual credential, take a 12-hour class, then a test, and then you're finally certified as a California studio teacher. Thank you.
Well, that's the one thing in doing a little bit of background research myself on this that I didn't realize. I always thought that the on-set teacher was there to educate. I didn't realize how much more broad that role really is, which was really interesting to me because to your point, I was always wondering, like, who's responsible to make sure that not just the education side, but just generally that the kids are okay?
Yeah.
Because everybody has different focuses on set. And so it does make sense that this person is, that role is a little bit more broad than that. Yeah.
Last night, like when I was on set and we're filming at the theme parks, I don't know if you guys can see, I'm here at Universal, but we're filming late in the theme parks. And yeah, the little one's getting a little, he wants to run around and he wants to go bother, the cameraman or the, whoever, the sound. And I have to, you're also kind of wrangling, come on, honey, come on, let's get back here. Let's, stay out of the way. Not just because you're trying to keep them close, but because you don't want them to get hurt or lost or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely eyes on the kids. And I agree with you, James. It's 100%. You have to keep your eyes on them, and it's not just school. And to me, it's, I'm a mom too, and I'm a teacher. So when I see a child, I'm just caring for them in all ways, in all senses. Are you fed? Did you rest? Are you sad? Are you scared? I'm just covering all the bases when it comes to the minor on set, which no one else that's the most unique thing about our job, right? Is that no one else on that set is worried about that. They're trying to make their commercial right now when I have to run I have to get going in about 2 minutes, but when I get to set with my kids, and I have a kid on this, I have 2 kids today, and they know, okay, you're on man to man. I'm with the kids, making sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
And school too, because they've got schoolwork.
Yes. Well, Amy, I know you do need to run, so I want to thank you for being with us. And whenever you need to duck out, just go ahead and disconnect, and we will continue the conversation. Ella, I want to go over to you. I want to hear from you. Tell us a little bit what it's like to be taught on set.
So being taught on set, it's really fun because you get a new set teacher, and it's really exciting to meet someone and see how they teach you. And I like having dedicated time to do schoolwork, and that's also why I finish so early, is because I have dedicated time to do it. And at home, I feel like I'm not as dedicated to it, and I feel like sometimes I'll slack off and
Focus is the word.
focus. Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense.
And some teachers, they really help me, like the teacher I have now. I have had teachers in the past where I have to do my own thing, but the teacher I have now, she helps me. And because my work's getting harder, it's harder for me to do it by myself. So she's like, a private tutor, and she's helping me and
Actually teaching.
yeah, actually teaching me, which is great. And we have a lot of fun. Like, I have a little brother on set too, and we're in the same schoolroom. and he's in second grade, and we do like some fun experiments together, and that's a lot of fun. Like we just blew up a volcano yesterday. We made homemade ice cream last week. So that part's a lot of fun.
And what grade are you in, Ella?
I am in seventh grade. I just finished my first semester.
Okay, okay, good. And what's the hardest part of doing on set, and not just on set, but education on set, but kind of jumping around, from different set to set sometimes.
Yeah, the hardest part I would say, well, one of them is a personal opinion. I don't like it when I can't hang out with my fellow crew and cast because I love hanging out with them and they're great friends. And then I have to go do 3 hours of school, and sometimes
Mhm.
I would just rather talk and have fun. But I think that's the hardest part for me. The hardest part is also when we have to, like what mom said, do the 20 minutes and then make sure I know my lines to go on set. That's also a hard part. And when I'm focusing on a quiz, if I'm mid-quiz, then I have to leave and then I have to come back and be like, okay, wait, do I remember all my knowledge?
Yeah. And what's your favorite
So,
subject?
ooh, I like science because I like blowing up volcanoes and doing stuff like that. So.
Good, good. So we have a question from the chat box that I want to jump in, and Michelle, I think this one might be good for you. Who's training the production folks or the companies that hire children to make sure they know the rules?
I believe, and I don't know this for sure, but typically the production will have someone that's, when they hire a minor, they're like, okay, this is what it was required of you when you bring minors on set. When the PAs go through, production assistants, when they go through these programs way back when, and they get certified and their certificates and whatever, they do teach those types of things. But the production assistants and the people in the office that put all this together and talk about the minors we're hiring, here's what's required, and this is what you have to do. And somebody else can probably answer this better than that, because I say new to the industry. I've been in the industry since my son was 11, the management side. I believe it's the production office or the production assistants. They look up the state regulations and verify that, that this is what you should do. As a producer, I've done a couple of small things for my son. It's like I already knew that information, and you think, where did that come from? So I don't really have. I would obviously, as someone just said, DGA and those types of things. They're getting their knowledge from there.
Yeah, yeah.
I would add in, and Alexa just added a comment along those lines. There's so much fine-tuned scheduling when it comes to the minors, what days they're working, the hours of schooling, that it has to be known. And when we're on set, you mentioned this earlier, Michelle, and we've got 20 minutes to go until she pumpkins, which is the term of when her hours are up and she's off set. And you're like, they're not going to get this shot in, but they've had her all day. They're like, when she pumpkins. So it's their production's responsibility to get in what they need with the minors while they have them. And Ella has 9.5 hours on set, including her 3 hours of school, half hour of lunch.
Yeah. And sometimes they forget. Sometimes they are just pushing, and they're turning around. They're like, go do school. And then they're like, wait, that shot was quicker. I mean, he's barely out of the room, or offset, and they're turning around again. Turnaround is the best time to get those 20-minute blocks in. I will say the first year Zach was on set, we did not do 20-minute blocks because we had a different set teacher, and that set teacher was not familiar with that. And so I talked to his agent, his manager, children in film. I mean, I researched everything, and I found out that we could do 20-minute blocks. And that was a saving grace, I will say, for us. And when it was a super busy day and Zach had a lot of scenes, we would make sure that those particular subjects we were working on was reading, or, things that didn't require a lot of like studying for exams or quizzes, like Ella said. But it's a tough day for a minor on set, and Ella, what you said. My son loved being in first team tent. He loved hanging out. He was the only minor on set, and he would have to go do school, and it just broke his heart. So sometimes the set teacher was so fantastic, and we worked some things in, and we've done field trips, and so it was really a good experience in Georgia when we did it there. It was different when we went to California, I will say.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the teacher's responsibility to monitor all of that time, to breathe down the neck of production and say she's got 20 minutes. So there was a question, oh, the teacher does more than just teach. Yes, actually, equal responsibility is the welfare and monitoring all of that. Now, here's just one dynamic that I've always thought was interesting. The teacher's hired by production. And who do they have to push back against if there's a problem? Production.
Yeah.
So it does put the teacher in a very interesting position. And, we've had great relationships with teachers. The one she has now, I think, will be her forever teacher. If Ella's also on Sweet Magnolias, which is filming its 5th season soon in Georgia. She was on seasons 3 and 4. And we're going to bring her current teacher with us to Georgia if that works out because of overlap schedule. We're not sure, but she'll follow us. And Ella's first studio teacher in LA, she did a sitcom for ABC, had been with many famous now adults, but one that sticks out was Elle Fanning, and she traveled the world with her. She did all of Elle's projects and graduated her from high school. And so we could see that her current teacher might be that person for Ella. So, the relationships can really last as well.
Wow.
When you talk about welfare, even when the minors have to go to 10-1 to the restroom,
Yeah.
it's not just a set teacher. It is like in the state of Florida, they don't call them set teachers. A lot of times they call them welfare, because that's what they're looking for.
Right.
So just
I think it's interesting. It's an interesting point what you were saying.
Aimee, you muted yourself.
Sorry. I thought it was interesting what you had just said, Lee, because it's very true. Production hires us, okay? And yes, and that's why I've been doing set teaching for 10 years, and I love it. I hope I get to work with you one day, Ella, too. But I think one of the things is, it is a true craft, is to be able to love on the kids, be there for the children, whatever they need. I look them right in the eye as soon as I get assistant. I'm your teacher. I'm Miss Aimee. Let me know what you need. I'm here for you. And then I talk to mom. I have a good relationship with mom, and any special requests, requirements. And then as for the production side, I'm making sure that everything is copacetic, right? And so I work very well. I would like to think I work well with the productions, and I have had to say, hey guys, they're done in the nicest way possible. They're done. So it doesn't have to be a, I'm very understanding of that. They are trying to they have their content, they have their job that they have to get done. But at the same time, this little one is practically in tears because they've been shooting and they're tired, and that's it. And they'll say, okay, even if they're not at the hours, if I notice something, you got to get this, guys. This is it.
Well, it is an interesting predicament, as it was brought up, that you're being paid, but you still have to play bad cop to the people that are paying you. And so, yeah, it's definitely an interesting predicament. Lee, talk a little bit about your balancing of Ella's learning and acting career and mom. Talk about that balance.
Yes, and I have a full-time job. I'm managing editor of a magazine.
Yep.
So, which thankfully is a job you can do remotely. I see a lot of parents ask the question, oh, I have a job, my kid's starting to get more work. How do you do that? Well, and my husband, who works in cybersecurity for L3 Harris, which is based in Florida, works remotely. So he's here with us in Texas the entire time. He has an office in this rental that we have. And how blessed is that our family can stay together during all of this. So I say parents look for remote works, but for Ella, it is balancing her with the right academic program. We didn't have FLVS, Florida Virtual School, at first. We tried different things. She had an online tutor. But then we found that this worked great, the Flex program, because you can do the classes on your time. She still has teachers in each of the subjects from FLVS who she could connect with and ask questions. And then this studio teacher, also just so people on the call know, when Ella's here the 4 months, she's obviously not working every single day, but she's on hold the days that she's not on set. So the teacher still does 3 hours of school with her when on her hold days. And they'll usually do that remotely online, which you're used to. Sometimes, but today we're actually going to a caverns here in Texas, and that's our field trip, and we're going to learn. And we've done several field trips because there's so much cool things to explore here. So cavern science, right? It all works out. And so your question was balancing.
Yep.
Ella, and she still gets auditions, right? And for big feature films and multiple pages of lines to learn. And it is really hard. It's always a little pang in your stomach or heart when you're like, oh, we got an audition. We got to fit that in. Because you know how much reviewing, she memorizes things really fast. It's kind of mind blowing. But that was not in my planner. That wasn't scheduled. So now that has to go in the audition. And doing her social media, a whole nother discussion I'm sure we could have. But I enjoy that, and I am almost full-time social media manager for her, and it's been a very valuable tool. That has to get fit in, and she's more involved in that now, voicing over and doing editing of her own. Of course, I'm managing and posting everything. But those are things that we feel are important. So Ella is a night owl. She likes to sleep in. She got up early for the call today. And so she does most of her schooling later in the day. That's when she wants to do it. It's a blessing for a creative person like this. I think that she doesn't have to get up at 7 or 6:30 in the morning, get on a bus and go to school. It just doesn't suit her. She's also a musician, and she writes music, and we have a keyboard here. And sometimes she just needs to go play piano and sing, and then she's ready for school. So honestly, I think each parent has to look at their child's needs, find when they're most productive, what they need to get out of their creative soul before they're ready to focus on school, when we're not on set, of course. And then, she does a great job with talking to her teacher. Hey, I feel like science right now. Okay, and we'll do math later. Or I feel like math first. You give them a little bit of what they feel will help the flow of their day.
John, there's a term they use on set also called banking hours.
Okay.
So Ella, do you get to bank some of your school hours? So
she's got a full bank.
I've got a full bank right now. So
do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah.
Sorry, John, I just took over this.
You're good. Banking is kind of like, let's say we got our 3 hours in a whole day, and there's one day coming in the week where I'm going to be super busy and we don't think we're going to have enough time for 3 hours. On that day that we've already done 3 hours, we can do maybe 2 more hours or 1 more hour. And that can, well, I think that's just 1 more hour, and we can save that hour in the bank. So on that day that I'm super busy, I can take the bank and I can only do 2 hours.
They can pull 2 hours from the bank.
Yeah.
You have to do a minimum of 1.
You have to do a minimum of 1. And I love banking because it makes life easier. And then, of course, I can go hang out with my friends and have fun. So I do like to bank. And I feel like on banking days, that's how I get so ahead, too. So banking is wonderful in many ways.
Well, and a follow-up for you, Lee, that came from the chat box. I think you're probably the best. And it says, is it sometimes easier to shoot during the summer break or on weekends? And what are the rules depending on, whether it's a commercial or series? But I mean, is there quote unquote summer vacation for Ella from an education standpoint?
Yeah, we've talked about that. We do want to take a break, but she could too. That's our choice, but it's required. So the production will follow the school calendar of her home school system.
Okay.
So I think May 28th, I believe, is the final day for Brevard County. So she technically has to be schooled until May 28th. The little boy here from California is June 13th. So he's going to go till June 13th. She probably will too. Because why not? But that's what's required following. And if she had a day off, Memorial Day or a holiday during the schools, they don't school on set. They're off too.
Okay.
And then I do believe like in the summer, there's no requirements. So it's great for productions to do things when there's no school calendar actually happening.
And
That is easier.
Weekends.
Now there's rules too, like we've seen this happen in Georgia and I believe here. So I think it's the SAG rule, and they tend to use whichever is more stringent between the state laws and the SAG. Is if a day player or a recurring character actor is not a kid, is not there for 3 consecutive days, then they don't have to school them, which is a
Okay.
little strange because say they work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the teacher's technically not responsible for schooling them because they're not consecutive days, but they're missing 3 days of school if they go to a brick and mortar school. So that's a little tricky thing for production to have in their knowledge. But if they have a kid Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they have to be schooled by the teacher.
And Lee, I mean, I don't want you to name names or anything, but I mean, do you find that, have you ever had a production, a lengthy one, and just been like, man, I do not want to work for this group again because they just do not respect Ella's needs?
Well, we did have a situation on a film where we felt uncomfortable with some of the ways that the teacher was communicating with Ella. Sent some photos to her that didn't seem appropriate. And we had to go to production and they immediately told him not to come back. And we addressed that. That's the only situation where we felt, wow, this isn't working. This guy doesn't understand crossing boundaries. Maybe he didn't mean anything by it, but this isn't appropriate.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated that they supported us and immediately took care of that. I still have to remind myself of the rules. The most recent, Ella doesn't work in Florida so much anymore because she's SAG and there's not much SAG work in Florida, but she did do a commercial a year and a half ago. And it was nighttime and I showed up and I was expecting to meet the teacher and there was no teacher. And I was like, it was a Friday night maybe. And I was like, is it because it's a nighttime? Like I thought and assumed that a welfare worker had to be on set with her. And was actually, and then they told me, okay, well, Ella can stay here in hair and makeup and you come with me to do contracts. I was like, I'm not leaving my kid. You don't even have somebody here to watch her. It really threw me. And it was a SAG production, a commercial. So I was like, man, am I missing something? Or are they missing something? So you really have to get to know the rules in each state because they are different.
Yeah.
And if you ever have any questions, you can call SAG. And usually there's a SAG rep in a region or in the state. Just get to know who that person is. I have business cards for the ones we've met in the different states. Never hesitate to ask a question or just make sure you're always with your child. You being the welfare worker, obviously, you buck stops with you.
Yeah. Michelle, talk a little bit just to tag on to that one. What's the difference between the union and non-union when it comes to this topic? I mean, I know technically there shouldn't be, but I mean, the reality is, what do you find?
The reality is it's different. Again, I'm not a proponent of the non-union, and a lot of non-union productions are great and wonderful, and we don't have an issue. I know for me on breakdowns, that's what we use as managers and agents to submit our clients for projects. It will say, minor. Sometimes they'll post on their, they would pay for this on a non-union project. And also we'll put a little paragraph there about a set teacher. Sometimes they don't, and we submit anyway. But when the offer comes through, that's my first question is, will there be a set teacher or a welfare person? It's different in California and in Florida and Georgia. Florida obviously says there needs to be a welfare person on set, but sometimes you find that there's not. And that's just sometimes, the parent will push a little bit. And if they are comfortable with it and productions, like, well, we don't feel like we need anybody. She's only here for, like you said, a day. We're in the state of Florida or whatever. I again, don't approve of that, but in the end, it is the parent's choice. I do try to make sure that it's, a good working environment, and I try to stay in touch with them pretty regularly. But when it's a SAG job, I will say the very first day that Zach was on set in Georgia, there was a conversation about set teacher and schooling, and they wanted Zach to come in on holidays and do school for 3 hours because they wanted to bank some time, or 4 hours. They wanted to bank some time. And I wasn't I didn't want to do that. And so I had a conversation with a set teacher. I actually called SAG, and this was that first set teacher we had. And they said, no, they are not required to work on holidays, and you're not required to bank hours. That was my first instance with banking. So in the beginning, I was like, ooh, no, we're not doing that. But then aside from holidays, I'm like, oh, I like bank. I like to put that extra hour in there. So again, you may have a set teacher and the first AD. And if this was a conversation between myself and the first AD, and she was in Georgia and she just didn't really understand, the California laws. And so that was me as my child's advocate, because again, you are your child's advocate. And the second person should be your set teacher. And so she and I were kind of on the same page of no, that he doesn't have to do the holiday. So,
well, and for those in the audience, if you guys have questions, if you want to start raising your hands, we'll call on you. We have a couple questions left here, but if anybody has anything, we'll start getting people lined up. James, I want to go back to you. When you're on set, talk about challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges that you have, maybe on a regular basis, and talk about addressing them?
Thank you, John. When I am on set, course with the studio teacher credential, I have to be a strong advocate for child performers. And as California Department of Industrial Relations, follow the labor laws of that state, no matter what state we're filming in. The term is I have to be the eyes and ears of California law as a studio teacher. So John, 3 challenges: work permits, work hours, and weapons. If I could just briefly outline those. The work permit situation was a feature film in New York. And even though we discovered while the scene was being filmed that the minor had no California work permit, had a permit for New York, the production people refused to pull the minor off set. So be aware, as a studio teacher, we have the ability to report a violation to the Department of Industrial Relations, which I did. And the feature film production people can be fined. The parent can be held responsible. So that role is really important. Work hours. We were working on an HBO feature, and the minor had to go past 12:30. It was a museum in Illinois. So the production folks for that episodic series obtained a credential, or excuse me, a permit for Illinois, but forgot to file for the permit for California. So that was reminded to production that both film permits had to be, for the work hours, had to be in order. And remember that rest periods and meal breaks have to be observed too. The child has to eat within 6 hours, and as our previous comments have made, 3 hours of school per day, 1 hour minimum in 20-minute segments. The last one, John, is weapons. We were doing an episodic series on Showtime in New York, and the armorer had to be brought in because there was a resin gun that was going to be used on set. So as the studio teacher, I called all of production in with the parents. We had a meeting. We physically handled the resin gun, the plastic gun, to make sure that everything was safe. In addition, on that same set, the atmosphere of fog and haze was used. So contract services in California have safety bulletins that tell studio teachers how to deal with atmospheric effects, which could affect a child. And the last comment on that one is 2 of the child performers had to get on a rooftop set, and there was a harness. So those are some of the challenges that I faced. But as our participants and panelists have said before, stand strong, because you have the labor laws behind you as the eyes and ears to protect child performers, not just for schooling, but for welfare, for health, and for safety.
Good. Like that. Good examples. Lee, I don't think this would apply to you. I'm taking a question from the chat box because Ella's in FLVS, but Michelle, maybe you know a little bit. It says, this one person's kids do 1 or 2 day shoots a few times a year. So the question is dealing with their regular school in terms of whether or not their shoot days are considered excused absences within the public school system, and what is the correct language to use. And then the follow-up is how many days on set is necessary to request a teacher? Is it just one or is it multi-day? Like, what are your thoughts?
Ella,
Well, I can, oh, I was
do
just
you
gonna
want
say,
to
I can
answer
talk
that? Yeah.
to the excused absence thing. So this, I'm in some different forums with parents of child actors of all different levels and experience, and I get a lot of people ask me questions, and we talk about things. And when Ella was going into first grade, I went into the school with a packet of registration to register her for first grade. And I said, hey, she's an actress, unpredictable. I don't know how many days she might miss when her jobs come up. And they said she can only miss 9 days of school a semester or else she stays back. That was it. They didn't want to talk to me about why, didn't want to work with me. Hey, she has a teacher when she works. We can take work with us. Didn't want to hear it.
Wow.
I've heard from people in other states that their public school's a little bit more cooperative. It's really going to be up to you to talk to your school about the situation. If it's just a couple days a year, that's up to you how you want to tell them why your child is out. But it is technically, they don't have to excuse it at all. Why? It's not an illness. It's not a family emergency. And so some schools, the school was a blue ribbon school, whatever, and if she's not in her seat by the number of days, then they don't get their funding. So it didn't work for us. I tried. A private school is going to be more accommodating. You're paying them tuition, they're going to work with you. But that's a reality. So I hope that answers that part of the question.
So my
Yes.
son was in a private school when he booked his first job. They were fine. But then we went to a public school the next year and they were not fine. So we withdrew him in the middle of his 5th grade year. And that's when we went out to California for pilot season. So I registered him in the state of Florida as a homeschool child. The teachers and the principals there at this public school were wonderful. They gave me all of the material he needed for the rest of his 5th grade year. Really didn't matter for that particular school because he was already withdrawn, because that's just the way they do it. Now, in a private school, it's completely different. They'll continue to keep them on the roster because you pay them. But that is when I realized that I did not want to homeschool my child, me particularly. I wanted a program. And that is how I found Florida Virtual School, and found the Flex program. So if you do the full-time program, it's September to May, and you have to be online in the classroom, on Zoom or whatever, 9 o'clock. And that didn't work for us because that was 6 a.m. in California. So we did the Flex program, which Ella is doing, and he could do live classes as well. And whatever, there were a couple of times he had to do a 6 a.m. because he needed instruction from his algebra teacher. And so that's why the Flex program at Florida Virtual School is so wonderful. But it is each school, not even in the state, or it's the school. Each school has different attendance rules, and you have to follow those. And even in California, I have a couple of kids in public school in California, and that is the hub. New York and California, that's where all the kids are. Atlanta, the same thing. But it's that they have their attendance rules, and you have to go by them.
And just to add, for schooling on set, I think Ella is in the 7th grade. She can school till 7 o'clock, and she can start no earlier than 7 a.m. But if you're elementary school, you must stop. California rules by 4 p.m. So you have to let production know that, so that the scenes that are being filmed have to occur at a certain time in the day. And one last comment, for bank time, there are certain rules about how minors can acquire bank time, the time, the number of hours, and so forth. And bank time cannot be carried back if the production ends and you go back to a school of choice, or the school that you're registered in. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Well, and full disclosure, I have just finished 7th grade in Florida virtual school, and my daughter, who just graduated UCF, was in Florida virtual school when she was younger. So Florida virtual school is not just for actors, it's for anybody that wants a little bit more flexible schedule.
And John, also, Florida virtual school is available to out-of-state students as well. A little different scenario, but because I've sometimes the clients will ask me, the parents, like what schools, homeschools, and I will recommend Florida virtual school, but there's K through 12. There's several that are pretty good programs, but it's nice to know that some of those Florida virtual school programs are available out of state, especially like the sports kids who tennis and golf, and they travel from overseas and everywhere. So.
Yep, absolutely. Lee, it looks like you want to grab something from the chat box. You want to go ahead and answer Alexa's question?
Yes. So this is really important for parents to advocate for their children's financial well-being and future. And I don't publicly post about this because I was told not all parents are good advocates of their child's money. So therefore, I don't want to advertise it publicly. But when you get a good family and good people in the industry, you want to share this fact that there's only 5 states that require a Coogan account. I don't know them off the top of my head, but no one told me when Ella went to work on this series for Netflix in Atlanta that Georgia was not one of those states. So they started taking the Coogan money out because they gave me the form and said, here, fill out the information. I thought this is what you do. And then I learned that Georgia doesn't require it. So I said, stop taking the Coogan money out because it's not a good place for the money to be. You can put it in a CD. Right now we have one at like 4%, but that's it. And so for, until 18, she's got 6 more years. That money could be better invested by us and our financial advisor. And so that is not true. They cannot make you take the Coogan out unless it's one of the 5 states that's required. Louisiana, I think New York, California, maybe Wisconsin, but you got to look up which 5 it is. And if you're not working in it, you don't have to have the Coogan taken out. Make sure payroll knows that.
Good, good. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any questions that people want to raise their hand. I think we've hit stuff in the chat box. So we're going to kind of wrap it up here. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to give whatever information they want to plug, whether it's phone number, email, website, social media, any of that. So James, go ahead, you start. What do you want to share?
I'd like to share that I want to give a shout out to my company, On Location Education in New York, which hired me for many, many assignments. They really schooled me on how to do onset and make sure I follow the labor laws. I publish Stage and Screen quarterly because I wanted to recognize all the wonderful hard work that's done by production crew and company on film and television sets. It's at screenartsmovingpictures.com, which I posted in the chat. And if you have questions about California studio teacher law regulations, be in touch with me at Carmicle, CARMICLE, at PACBELL, PACBELL.net. Thank you for this opportunity and for the Film Florida Friday event. Thank you, John.
Absolutely. Aimee, I see you're with us in a new environment, so go ahead and share anything. I know you already put stuff in the chat box, but whatever you want to throw out there.
Yeah, no, thanks so much again for holding this space. I think it's a really important conversation. And yes, everybody, please feel free to reach out anytime you have any kiddos on set. I do a lot of with the cruise lines, but also Florida is my main home base. But I do travel because I think they hit it before when they said it really depends on which teacher you get. It can make the experience, a joy or not so much. So I'd love to be on set with you guys. Again, it's Aimee Romano, www.thefloridateacheronset.com. And I'm going to go take my cold medications. Thank you guys. Thanks
Feel
again.
better.
I got to
And
run to the
Michelle?
set. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Bye. Michelle?
Bye.
Yeah, so I just put my email in the chat box and Instagram, Stellar Artist Management. We're on Facebook, same thing, Stellar Artist Management spelled out. And I'm in Florida, obviously, but I would say split clients in Georgia and California. So if you have any questions about the industry, if you're a mom, if you know someone that's thinking, I think maybe my child has what it takes to be in this industry, I can come from both sides. The mom of he's 23. I don't know if I said that. And he is living on his own in California, and, living that actor life. So he worked on a independent film last week, which he's very excited about. So his name is Zach Pullam, if you are interested in Googling him and looking him up. But he's a Florida boy who was born and raised in Florida and got started, which is an interesting fact, at the Florida State University Film School as a kid actor. That is a great place for your children to find out if that's really truly, if they want this industry, because that is as close as you will get to a professional set.
Very
Thank
good.
y'all for having me. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend.
Absolutely. And Lee and Ella, what would you like to share?
I put Ella's information in the chat. Her website is ellagracehelton.com, and Instagram Adventures of Ella Grace, also on Facebook Adventures of Ella Grace. And that's a great place to keep up with her projects. This show that we're filming right now, starring Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, is going to be so funny. I mean, I laugh out loud reading the scripts. And it'll be on Apple TV. We're still shooting it through the end of June. And Sweet Magnolia season 5, and all of her other creative adventures. So thank you for the support.
Good luck,
Absolutely.
Ella.
Thank you.
So that's going to wrap up another edition of Film Florida Friday. Thanks to Aimee, James, Michelle, Lee, and Ella for being with us. And thanks to all of you for joining us. As always, thanks to Katie Collins and Christy Andreoni for helping me wrangle and prepare Film Florida Friday each month. We're going to take some time off for the summer, but we are going to be back with in September with a new season of Film Florida Friday. As always, thanks to all of our Film Florida members for their continued support. If you're not a member of Film Florida, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, so we hope you will consider joining the organization at filmflorida.org. Keep up with everything we're doing on our social media pages. Make sure you check out the Film Florida podcast, which is available on most major podcast outlets. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episode. Thanks for being here. Stay safe and have a great summer, everybody.
Bye.